Good morning. This is me, the Grand Duchess Rasmuskonin. That's my new name. I'm going to change my name, but for the record, for Maryland Board of Nursing, my name at birth and on my birth certificate is Ryan Tomlinson. My age is 45 years old, 18th of January 1970, last 43224. Former nurse, former, a survivor of fratricide in the army, that disgusting, stinking slavery corps, where I suffered abuse, torture, patient neglect, and so forth. But let's get to the real story now. I want to start. The third video is on Korea in assault. Mr. John Miller asked me, it was decided by the board, whatever, that you had some psychiatric illness and you were court-martialed and so forth, and they had to. All that is a bag of shit lies. That's what their standard is. They have no standards. They're unethical and so forth. I want to address that issue where when I came home from deployment, I should have gotten 90 days to reintegrate to society. Instead, they told me, bitch, in no sense, we need you on the floor, and they make up in staves. And Von Army made up in, Captain Von Arnie at the time, or Major Arnie, made up in face and like frowned at me, and I heard a smirk like he said faggot. So I never got any 90 days. I came straight from deployment and I worked on the floor until I left for Korea. I kept on asking for leave. I was so tired, and they said that they were afraid I would commit suicide. I have never been suicidal. I've never been homicidal, but that was their smear campaign. Because at deployment, I overheard Colonel Ryan and Colonel Mahoney talking. I was the only black male working in detainee health, and they said they didn't want a black faggot's face representing detainee healthcare. They wanted somebody manly. So they got this guy from San Antonio, Texas. Forgot what his name is. It's oblivious to me anyway. And he came, and I stepped back because I did 1 year than all the rest of imbecile U.S. Army nurses that did 3 months, that were my level and lower. So what I did was I stepped back and I let them do what they wanted to do. I did not complain, because that is their cycle. That is the pathology of abuse, you know, to constantly abuse and so forth until you probably have some sort of illness or breakdown or some sort of paranoia fear, paranoia or fear which has not manifested in me. Anyway, I came back to Fort Bliss. Going back to the story, I came back to Fort Bliss without leave, denied, harassed, and so forth. And when I was leaving, no one even signed my, they signed the papers and just left them there. It was a disgraceful, disgusting, Masonic, moronic army, and I do not recommend it to you and the students. This is a life learning lesson in fratricide, and I want Mr. Miller, I want you to pass this on to anyone that would listen, so that they never make those morons, Masonic Army Nurse Corps morons, never make the same mistake. Those moronic imbeciles, racist, and so forth. So when I got to Korea now, I was raped and assaulted in Korea. I sent Major General Aura an email and said, I need to get out of here. You need to help me. I brought it to the attention of some of the leaders, and nothing happened either. Instead, they brought Colonel Savini from, where you call it again? Killeen, Texas. And then she sent me to another area, in which I was threatened that if I didn't cooperate, they will blacklist me and so forth, by Colonel Larson. I was assaulted. I was drugged and assaulted in Daegu, South Korea. I reported it in Yongsan. I reported it also. I sent an email to General Aura. She did nothing. I called my uncle. He said not to talk about it because the army doesn't deal well with it. It was the worst experience in my life. Neglect, and there was no one to listen. That was the quote-unquote supposed to be the bipolar period, where I executed all and did all my work. Worked 7 days a week per Colonel Savini. 7 days a week, plus running a clinic, plus running an an immunization program which I completed. I can show you the documentation, the documented evidence on the OER. And so therefore, I went to Youngsang after I was assaulted and they cut me short. I went to Youngsang, South Korea, from Daegu, South Korea. When I got there, no, let me backtrack. When I reported the rape, I was standing outside the hospital because I first went to the psychiatrist. And then I did all the tests. I went and did X-ray. People want to know, why were you doing blood test, X-ray? I said, please check me for chemicals, drugs, whatever, please. I felt ashamed at first to report it as such. And when I stood outside, I was leaving the hospital, Colonel Kaur walked behind me, and another soldier got out of the car, and she said, one shot, one, she said, censored, one shot, one kill. And I stood up there, and he said, no. He said, no, they're just going to watch him. Suicide watch and watch him. And I stood up right there and heard everything. And that's the last day I had respect for any of those niggers. When I say niggers, the organization of Masonic niggers. Not black people, not white people. The nigger army, U.S. Army, nurse, medical, and medical corps. Those niggers are not worth the dignity of my respect or the dignity of my knowledge or intelligence, which they have none. So they continued to assault me until I had a heart attack and a stroke. I went to the clinic to get help. I was denied health care. I was harassed by Diane Deal and so forth. I walked around with half of my shoulder, half of my left side drooping. My face was drooping and so forth. Without medical help, without medical attention, I went to the leadership, Colonel Ackerman, Colonel Shutak, and Colonel Roberts, to report that I could not function. I had a cardiac, I had a heart attack. I spent 3 days in the ICU. And, you know, I could go into some other things, but I'm not departing from where I am. I'm not backtracking. And so I sat there suffering. I called HRC and told them that I needed to come home, that I was not well and so forth, and nobody did anything. They threatened to blacklist me and further threatened, and they were a present, clear and present danger threat, which it was, to my life, my livelihood, and my career, which they carried out in, I will always call it, an assassination attempt, character, physical, and verbal. James Comer harassed me also, Diane Deal, and Gabriel Fabroni. Part of that whole, the whole pathology of their thing is the assault to make you mentally insecure and stable and mentally unstable and so forth. But while I sat on that floor after I had a heart attack, it took them 5 minutes and 5 nurses outside the door, more than 5 minutes, to come and get me, to take me to the ER. Secondly, they never even called a code. They just said, oh, you're feeling well? I was foaming from my mouth. I was profused in sweat, and I was unable to speak. And I kept on walking on until somebody come and said, are you okay? Are you okay? Not a code. And so therefore I couldn't dignify myself with those stinking U.S. Army Nurse Corps. Yes, I'm using some vile language, but they are worth it. Those niggers of the Army Nurse Corps and Medical Corps are worth it. It was a very horrible experience. And then they lied again and wrote, this is what you had. You had a nervous breakdown. Or no such thing. I was drugged, raped, and poisoned, and further assaulted by them. This is a true testimony for the Maryland Board of Nursing. My name is Ryan Tomlinson. I swear to tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth, so help me God.